I decided that I wanted to talk about what it's like, or at least what it was like for me, to be a ministerial servant and an elder in the Jehovah's Witness movement. Now, there's a lot more to tell as an elder than there would be as a ministerial servant, but I suppose I wrap it up in a ball because it was about a 20-year period of my life, about 10 years as a servant and about 10 years as an elder. I served as a servant and an elder in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And they made me an elder when I was 27. And, I was a regular pioneer. I had been at Bethel, and I got to tell you, it threw me for an absolute loop. Now, before I get to that, I'm going to back up for just a second. I estimate that in that 20 years, I gave about 3,000 parts from the platform. I certainly gave, I'd say at least 100 parts at the assemblies, because it seemed like once they made me an elder, for whatever reason, I immediately started giving talks at the special day, the 2-day, and then within a couple of years, the district. So, given all these parts, feeling comfortable on the stage, it didn't really make me nervous anymore to go up there. I mean, I did it so many times. But so I'm a brand new elder, and I'm going to use some first names. I would never use last names. But of course, most of you folks don't know where I'm from. There are ones of you out there that know all about me, and you lurk on some of the forums, on my blog site, JWStruggle.com, and of course here on YouTube and on Vimeo. So, you know that I was in this place called Porterville, and most of the time that I was a servant was there. So anyways, this other young fellow and myself were made new elders. We'll call him Ronnie. Ronnie was 1 year older than me. So Ronnie's 28, I'm 27. And within 2 weeks of being made an elder, all of a sudden I'm told, we're going to have a meeting after the regular meeting. Tuesday night was our midweek meeting. And so all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, it's going to be my first real live elders meeting. Well, it was a doozy because there was 2 elders. The elder body was like about 8 or 9 strong at that point, which didn't last, believe me. Almost the whole time I was an elder, there was only 3 or 4 of us, which is part of the reason that I worked my ass off, constantly doing parts, constantly having judicial committee meetings. I must have gone on at least 200 to 300, committee type stuff. Anyways, I'll get to that. So Ronnie and I are elders for like 2 weeks. We don't know anything. Now, I had managed to study about half of my elder book at this point, but it was all theoretical, and it was the flock book back then. Now, of course, it's the shepherd book. The KS10 is the abbreviation that the wash towel likes to use. So Ronnie and I, all of a sudden, we're in this elders meeting, and 2 of the elders are up on, accusations and charges, one of which was Ronnie's dad and, Dwayne. And so it's just, I had already resolved, I'm a new elder. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to listen, because I didn't even feel qualified to be in the room. I was the youngest guy in the room. It seemed like I was, for the first, almost the entire time I was an elder, I was always the youngest guy in the room. Anyways, so the first thing I notice is my high and lofty father-in-law, a wise scholar of the Watchtower. He's not a scholar of the Bible, but he's certainly a scholar of Watchtower policies. Bob begins to bicker and argue with this other alpha male elder, Dick, and he and Dick are just going, Bob and Dick are just going back and forth, and they're pulling out big binders out of their giant, huge elder bags, and, you know, he'd flip open to some Watchtower bound volume and read a quote, you know, to back up his position, and then Dick would pull out some photocopied thing, and he'd read that, and they would go back and forth, you know. And I remember that being one of my earliest recollections was, whoa, the gloves are off, man. You know, this isn't some, oh, we're going to talk to this loving publisher and this gentle sister. No, I mean, this was just like politics and backroom brawling. And so Dwayne had worked for a church, and, you know, he had fixed their air conditioning unit or something, and they were making a big deal about that. And to me, it didn't seem like that big of a deal, but, you know, I'm the new guy. I'm just going to listen. And of course, that Ronnie, that was his dad, you know, so he was shocked, but he, of course, you know, recused himself and said, look, I don't want to participate in this. And in fact, in later stages, I don't even think he was there. I think he just went home, you know, because it was his dad. But so we're there till like midnight. And, you know, it was all these accusations and arguments. And, you know, we couldn't resolve it, of course, the first night. And so we had to come back, you know, Tuesday. So this would have been like the next day was Wednesday. We have another one Wednesday. And we have another meeting on Wednesday till midnight. And, you know, Dwayne gets to leave. Okay. You know, all in favor of deleting Dwayne, you know, and I just went along with the vote, you know. I never really did say much about that one. I was brand new. And then we have this other elder that we're going to have to consider. And I had looked up to this guy. He was my book study conductor, Bill. Bill was just a nice roly-poly kind of guy. His wife ran everything. She totally ran the house. And he was fine with that. You know, they were fine with that. But he was just kind of, you know, a nice guy, liked to fix watches, pick them up at yard sales and such. And he had problems in his house. His his teenage daughter was fooling around, getting into trouble. She had a boyfriend who was going into the house, staying overnight sometimes. Allegedly, the boyfriend got up in the night and went into the bedroom of his younger daughter, the younger sister, who was like a young teen, whereas this girl was like 18, and allegedly stood over her and, you know, while she was asleep and groped her. And then she woke up, and then this young witness kid says, you didn't see this. I'm not here. You're dreaming. And then he walks out. So the daughter goes and tells Bill, and he never does nothing about it. She says, oh, you were probably dreaming. It just lets it go. And then it comes to light that this guy's, you know, this young JW guy that his older daughter was dating was a real, you know, loser. And so the long and the short was, he was like real humble, and he's like, well, whatever brothers you think you need me to do, that's fine, whatever you think. And so the brothers deliberated, and once again, I mostly just listened because I don't know I don't know anything. I was shocked over the whole thing. And then they, you know, well, we need to delete you. As soon as they said that, his whole demeanor changed. He wasn't so humble anymore. And then he said, well, I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to appeal this. I don't agree with you brothers. And so we went through all that. We had to have another midnight meeting on that. and the society upheld our decision, which, was pretty much for sure anyways. The circuit overseer had to consult with him. And so within the first, at this point, it'd been a month or two now that I've been an elder. And it was just, 2 elders are deleted. Then the 2 big alpha dogs, Bob and Dick, my lovely father-in-law, the wise oracle of everything Watchtower policy. Well, he butts heads real hard with this Dick guy, and the Dick guy moves to another congregation, like a next door, and then my father-in-law, like the lone, stranger that he is, he takes off and moves away. He'd move in, he'd be there for a couple of years, he'd cause a ruckus, he'd get people deleted, he'd get people mad at him, and he'd get some people that loved him because he was a freedom fighter for good, and he'd stir up trouble, and then he'd move away and do it all over again in another hall. And each time he would do that, he would never look back, never call or visit or any of the close and dear friends that he had made in that hall. Wherever he moved to, those were all his instant friends. And some of them would instantly be little disciples of his, and they'd hang on to his coattails. And then in another couple of years, he was gone, and he was off to another challenge. Actually, I could do an entire video on this fellow. In fact, maybe I'll do that. Put a pin in that. So I had been an elder for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden we're down to like 4 elders. And so there's Ronnie and me, and then there's like Sam, and then they bring in this guy Dan, who was from a next door hall. And it was the 4 of us for a long time, like the next couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So I'm an elder for 2 or 3 months at this point, and bam, my first judicial committee meeting. Oh, we had a 5th one. We had a guy named Jim also. So we had 5 elders for a while. That's right. Jim didn't last very long, although he's an elder again. That's my understanding. Today, as of 2014 3/4. So, bam, judicial committee meeting. Teenage kid, he was like 18 or 19 maybe, lived at home with his mother, and they put Jim as the chairman because he was experienced, which I'll get to that. Oh my God. You want to talk about untrained and not knowing his head from a hole in the ground. That was this guy. But he'd been an elder for several years and was probably in his, early 40s at that time, maybe. I'm 27, Ron's 28. So it was Jim and then me and the 2 new guys. Because this was an easy one, right? So they put us on it. So this kid had smoked a marijuana cigarette in his backyard. And apparently his mother had, gone out in the backyard looking for him, and she catches him. And so she's shocked and she's mortified, and she says, you need to talk to the brothers. The brothers will help you. I'm worried about you. I'm disappointed in you. Whatever she said, something to that effect. She was a sweet lady. She's probably still a sweet lady. So she wanted him to get the help that he needed. So we meet with the kid, and he's kind of a quiet guy, and a very calm, kind of an unemotional kid. That was just his demeanor. So, we explained to him, this is a serious sin, and this can lead to, bigger sins. And, he says, yeah, I screwed up. And, he didn't really say a lot. I think he said something like, yeah, I screwed up. I think that was basically what he said. So we talk to him, we read him scriptures for maybe a half an hour, and we dismiss him. So the chairman, the flock book, now the shepherd book, they both say the same thing on this. They say you're supposed to deliberate. You're supposed to, each elder is supposed to take a turn, like looking up something in the elder book and some scriptural principles and weigh it, have a say. All three of us, generally there's three, all three of us would have a say, and then we would consider, whether to retain him or to cast him off in line with Jehovah and the Holy Spirit. Okay, that's what the book says, right? And I even knew that, because by this point I'd finished studying, the 200 pages or whatever the elder's book is. I had already highlighted it and I'd been done with it, And you're supposed to review, sections like 5A, B, and C, which are the DF sections. Every time you go on a judicial committee meeting, you're supposed to reread them. And I'd done that. So as soon as we dismissed the kid, the chairman, Jim, says, well, I think we got to disfellowship this kid. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Are you sure? Because, it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. I knew it was wrong. It's drugs and smoking and drugs together. It was wrong. And I said, well, no, yeah. So Jim says, we should disfellowship him. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. And then Ron says, well, yeah, I guess you're right. We should probably disfellowship him. And this had only been 2 minutes after he'd left the room. So I was like doing the time out thing with my hand. And I said, well, wait a minute, brothers, aren't we supposed to go through some stuff in the book and look at some scriptures and talk about it before we do that? And it's so funny. I had something similar happen one time when I served on jury duty some years later. We go back to deliberate on this guy that committed some petty theft or whatever it was. And bam, everybody wants to vote whether he's guilty or innocent right off the bat without even deliberating. But that's, that just seems to be the logical way. And yeah, in some kind of deja vu, I said the same thing when I was in jury duty. Hey, aren't we supposed to deliberate before we decide? And then everybody goes, oh yeah, okay. So same situation, the three of us deliberated. Oh yeah, okay, let's deliberate. So 15 minutes, we all have our piece to each other. He's still waiting, of course. It's only been, maybe not even 20 minutes at this point. And then the two of them are still like, yeah, we got to disfellowship him because, and then at least they got a because out of it. Because he didn't say, I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for damaging my relationship with Jehovah. I'm sorry for bringing reproach upon his name. He never said any of those things, which are like suggested things that you're looking for, in the Watchtower references. There's some bound volume references about that. There's an old article called Weakness or Wickedness, Which? And those of you that used to be JW elders, you'll probably remember that article. That was a real go-to study article, that we would use sometimes. So that was their reason. We needed to disfellowship this kid because he didn't say the right things. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't cry. He didn't, And so what I said, well, I don't think that this kid has the vocabulary for that. I don't think that he really knows how to say what you want him to say. What if we bring him back in and we talk to him some more? Because I think that maybe we could get him to appreciate that. And then they're like, well, that we're not supposed to put words in his mouth. We can't put words in his mouth. We have to go with what we have here. And I'm like, well, okay, because the elder book did say that, you can't put words in their mouth or coax them to say the right thing. So they're done. They want to get home. They want to go home for supper or something. And they call for a vote, And I wouldn't agree. I said, no, brothers, I think that we need to think about this more, because, you know, it's maybe we should just like give him reproof. You know, maybe we should, you know, privately reprove him because nobody knew about it, and then see what happens. And they're like, no, you know, one thing you didn't know was he had been warned about bad association last year. And, you know, you and Ron, you know, you guys weren't elders then, and we had warned him about bad association, I guess because it turned out that he had gotten the joint from, you know, some kid he was friends with, you know, that he had been warned not to associate with. So that was the reasoning there, you know, was he'd been warned about that, and so, you know, we have to disfellowship him. So I held out, you know, for like, I don't know, half an hour more, 20 minutes, debating with these two guys. But finally, they just laid the guilt trip on me. You know, it was like, well, you know, we need to be unanimous about this, and if we can't reach an agreement, then we'll have to call in other elders, you know, because the you know, on a disfellowshipping matter, you know, the three are supposed to all be in agreement. So at that point, I thought, you know what, I'm the youngest one, I'm inexperienced, I'll go along with it. And I did. So we disfellowshipped him. And I, you know, like I said, been an elder 2 or 3 months at this point, and I already had a notch on my belt, on my DFing belt, that I didn't want. And that's the way it went down. And I can't believe that I've already been talking for like 20 minutes, and I haven't even gotten to, oh my goodness, I've got at least 3 or 4 more of these kinds of scenarios I could easily give you. I guess I'm going to have to make this in multiple parts if people want more. You know what? I generally like to talk about positive things. You know, I'm Mr., you know, get out of the Watchtower mindset and start, you know, start living, you know, start being happy, start being free. So this is something I guess maybe I just needed to get off my chest. You know, I've told some individual friends some of these things before, but I think people need to know, former witnesses need to know, and current witnesses, some of you lurkers, some of you faders, some of you current ones that are still mentally thinking that Holy Spirit is, you know, just permeating the room like this beautiful perfume, you know, that you can just see it floating around. Holy Spirit has nothing to do with what goes on in these back rooms, and this isn't even close to the biggest doozy of a backroom story that I could tell you. So I think maybe I'll do another one of these, you know, if you guys want me to, if I get comments or if I get people saying, yeah, do some more of these, I will. Or maybe if I just feel like it, I'll do something. You can't stop me. Nah. All right. See, now I'm trying to lighten the mood. I'm happy now. I'm pulling into my abode, and yeah, I'm done with YouTube videos, and I'm ready to have a relaxing afternoon and evening, and I suggest you do the same. Take care, my friends.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.